for a point.
Yeah, I was able to be here for a second.
This room is very, very cold.
Oh, it's freezing in here.
Very cold.
We don't even have a projector, we just have a little screen. Interesting. It is freezing.
It's very cold. That's what we found to notice that this institution, in terms of the battle that will decide the final fate of humanity, has decided to side with the underdog, namely Pepsi.
Yeah.
There's the Coke product, that's called.
This is it. That's
You have seen our refrigerator, you know, that is a single most important battle.
That's right, that's it. It's kind of hard setup for whoever's going to be sitting on this side because you won't really be able
You
to.
can see well, actually, no one will be able to see the screen.
I think maybe what we could do is push this back a little bit so that we, I don't know, if people want to stand up and actually could go over and use the podium. That way you can kind of stand to your side and look at your slides. I hate presenting when I can't see what I'm talking about.
I have mine on the surface of this, and look at it, and read off my notes.
Hold it back a little bit over there. Now we can hold these forward a little bit. So that we can actually.
I'm trying to get myself to Starbucks, but there's always a long line. Every time I've gotten there.
Yeah, it's freezing.
It's cold. It's actually, it's cold.
Yeah.
It is.
I get a lot of people. It's a body weight.
Jacket.
Actually, I wouldn't describe it as chilly. I think a more appropriate description is damn cold.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's not much between us and the atmosphere.
We have two exterior walls.
Yeah. Words uttered by every single person
I
who
know,
comes
it's
into this room.
I'm gonna get my
That's
coat.
ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Jacob, Erica, nice to finally meet you. Yeah, well, no worries. Combining slides is not the most difficult
So you
task.
put them all in a single.
We're all on a single slide deck now, so we're not having to
Yeah,
open and
you're
close
switching
them.
around presentations. Good
I
idea.
think I grabbed my coat, honestly.
Yeah, we have time, so see if I can get logged in here.
I discovered that the file that's on the Dropbox.
Not the red one?
one.
This one? Okay.
Doesn't have the animation, so I put it in there. I tried to upload it, but I don't think it.
Okay, we get time. Just mess around with it. Is it's in a PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's a PowerPoint. It's the only PowerPoint in that little file.
Okay.
And I added the word revised, so there's no chance to confuse.
Okay. you're right in the middle.
That's hard when there's four.
There are 5 of us, right? Let's see where the tech people are to get this thing locked in. But it's okay, I can I just put it on the ground. No, I'll so I can put the rest of that. Yeah, I'm gonna open up your PowerPoint at the end, so it's whatever you have to think that we don't have to worry about. If it's good, I don't know, there are a lot of people having each other, so I think that's it. Okay. So, welcome everybody towards a new architecture of relationships in pre and post disaster environments. 10:45 peer-on-peer panel session. I want to read for you the description that we had posted for the panel. While a lot of emphasis is put on building back better critical physical infrastructures, very little emphasis is placed on the development of the deep multisectorial, multi-level, multidisciplinary relationships that can ensure the sustainability of post-disaster efforts. Utilizing examples from the ground, this panel explores current models for real engaged scholarship, from convergence to the science of team science, that are centered around trust building, governance innovation, and collective ways to tackle wicked problems in the post-normal era of the Anthropocene. So my name is Jacob Manns. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Minnesota. I've been working with Marla and Cecilio and the RISE Steering Committee group for a couple of years now on this concept, and I'm very honored and excited to be moderating this panel. I want to introduce our panelists first, and then I want to give a few remarks just to try and help frame the discussion. I'm going to read a little bit of their bios because it describes pretty well a lot of the extraordinary efforts that these people are doing to work in interdisciplinary and creative ways. So I'm going to start with Walter Diaz from the University of Texas, Rio Grande. Dr. Walter Diaz is the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Texas, Rio Grande in Edinburgh and Brownsville, Texas. Prior to this, he was a full professor of political science in the Department of Social Sciences at the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. His primary research interests have centered on the social roots and consequences of extreme events, the implications of technology and political participation, involvement, access and success to higher education and other areas in which the application of social science methodology could be useful. In doing so, he developed strong interdisciplinary approaches that led to collaboration with colleagues in fields such as anthropology, sociology, engineering, and biology, as well as within agencies such as Puerto Rico and the Federal Emergency Management Agencies, NOAA, the USACE, and the U.S. Census Bureau. Next, I want to introduce Ann Fenton, City University of New York Board of Trustees. Throughout her 18-year career in government, Ann has demonstrated outstanding preparedness, response, and recovery planning. Ms. Fenton is currently the Deputy Secretary of the Board of Trustees at CUNY, where she manages the New York Stands with Puerto Rico program. The program offers CUNY students a unique service and learning opportunity to support the Puerto Rico Recovery and Rebuilding Initiative. Over 500 CUNY students have completed 2 3-work service projects working with nonprofit organizations aiding in the reconstruction and revitalization efforts of communities across the island of Puerto Rico. Prior to CUNY, Ann was a member of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery Executive Team, managing communications, constituent affairs, governmental affairs, research, and MWBC civil rights programs. She worked closely with program directors, including housing, real estate acquisition, small business, and infrastructure to advance the Governor's Office and Storm Recovery mission of rebuilding a stronger and more sustainable New York. I want to next move on to Erica Smithwick from Penn State University. Erica is the E. Willard and Ruby S. Miller Professor of Geography, is a landscape and ecosystems ecologist. She is the director of the Ecology Institute and an associate director of the Institute of Energy and Environment, both of which foster interdisciplinary environmental research. She was also the founding director of the Center for Landscape Dynamics, which connects science to management. Her laboratory group, Landscape Ecology at Penn State, is actively involved in understanding how a wide range of disturbances, especially fire, affect ecosystems functions at landscape scales. Her current research is focused on the influence of these changes on socio-ecological resilience and sustainability, with special attention to protected area management in Africa and the U.S. This work is increasingly focused on problems that require intra- and transdisciplinary teamwork to address complex environmental challenges. One of these projects, called Visualizing Forest Futures, seeks to address how indigenous and Western knowledge systems can best be used to address forest sustainability under climate variability, in partnership with the Menominee Tribal Nation in northern Wisconsin. Next, I want to introduce Jenny Stevens, Northeastern University. Jenny Stevens is the director of Northeastern University School of Public Policy and Urban Affairs, the Dean's Professor of Sustainability Science and Policy, and the Director for Strategic Research Collaborations at the Global Resilience Institute. Her research, teaching, and community engagement focus on social political aspects of renewable energy transformation, energy justice, climate justice, energy democracy, and gender and race and energy and climate. Her forthcoming book, Diversity, Power to Save the World, demonstrates that responding to climate change requires diversity in leadership, redistributing wealth and power, moving beyond technocratic solutions to climate, and prioritizing transformative social justice and social change. And finally, I want to introduce Jorge Benenguez from Texas A&M University. Dr. Jorge Benenguez is the Dean of Architecture at Texas A&M University since July 2008, and also a research professor at the Texas Engineering Experimental Station. His scholarly and professional activities include, among others, creativity, innovation, design, and entrepreneurship, built environment sustainability and resilience, and integrated architecture, engineering, and construction capital asset delivery management. He has received national and international awards for his scholarly accomplishments in education, research, and service, and also professional acknowledgments, including being inducted in 2018 to the National Academy of Construction and 2010 to the Pan American Academy of Engineering. He currently is a member of the board of the Texas Society of Architects, serving at-large as the at-large educational director since December of 2018. So I wanted to spend a few minutes just kind of outlining some of the initiatives that these panels are working on to show how the projects that they are doing are really trying to kind of extend out beyond both their disciplines, but also the kind of sectors of education out into the professional realm, into governance. I think it's increasingly important and a really important part of this conversation that we look at those kinds of collaborations. So I just want to say a few things to help frame this. So as an architect, I confess that I'm incredibly biased towards the design of objects and buildings to solve environmental issues. I think it comes with my disciplinary training that I tend to focus on a specific set of solutions. They're solutions, but they're only one kind of a myriad variety of solutions that are required to bring about the type of transformative change that we're talking about at this conference. And more recently, I've begun shifting my disciplinary frame toward the design of relationships. And through relationships, I've begun to engage in inquiries that extend my own research far beyond buildings, far beyond, I think, what people would consider my kind of disciplinary focus, and into areas where I lack expertise. I do this because I think it is necessary. I do this because I think disciplinary isolation is no longer sustainable. It was, in fact, never sustainable. And of course, I can only do this work on these issues where I'm not necessarily an expert, work on increasingly complex projects if I work to design relationships with people. So I believe that we need to create powerful relationships that will not only lead to project-specific innovations, but to long-term connections that will make us more resilient as a community. Relationships that will not only help solve our own questions, but help us ask new and more important questions with the communities that we work with. We should look at those on this panel to help think critically about how we structure relationships with goals and missions in mind, to develop relationships that are flexible and iterative, and to define metrics to evaluate our relationships so that we can make adjustments to improve them. I think the difference between a project and a relationship is that projects have starts and ends, and relationships, they extend. And I think it's these extensions that are key to RISE, and I think it is these extensions that are key to our resilience. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Walter again, and if you want to come up here so you can see the slides a little bit better.
I'm fine if you just, I'm fine from here.
Okay.
That's okay. So if you can just control it, that would be awesome. So I'm just going to talk about a few projects that I've been involved in over the years. as examples of ways to engage with different stakeholder groups and constituencies in different formats. I'm going to read from my slides. I am very much an English as a second language person, and I feel uncomfortable speaking off the cuff without reading in English. So the first project I want to highlight is the Collaborative Adaptive Sensing of the Atmosphere program, which is a National Science Foundation funded engineering research center based at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And it's a partnership with the Colorado State University, University of Oklahoma, University of Puerto Rico at Maya West, which was my previous institution, and the University of Delaware. It began in 2003 and is still operating. It is a very, very large and innovative development project. The goal was and still is to develop a dense network of lower-powered artificial intelligence-controlled weather radar network to better observe the atmosphere to improve weather observation and forecasting. That sounds like a very engineering type project, and it is. However, there's a very important question, and that is, observe what? So therefore, the new technology solution, but what was the problem? We oftentimes forget that. So, the issue is that different stakeholder groups need to observe different things. So, for example, for the high-level meteorologists at the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center, they care about what they call storm or tornado genesis. They want to predict the formation of storms and tornadoes. And that requires certain configuration of the radar system to observe the conditions that generate the storm, generate tornadoes, and other weather phenomena. However, the operational meteorologists, what they care about is when the tornado or the system touches ground. However, the more research-oriented weather service operator, they don't care about that. Once a tornado actually touches ground, they don't care anymore. They want to go back to predicting where the next one is going to be, because that's the science that's interesting to them. And the emergency manager on the ground, he or she, they only care about one thing: putting all eyes and every single little bit of bandwidth available on whatever thing is happening in their jurisdiction. And those are very different radar configurations to get it to work. And but like with everything in life, you cannot have cake and eat it, so you have to decide what you're gonna do. So to be able to do to address that question, we reached out to different stakeholder groups, mainly as research participants, but also in a collaborative and outreach mode to better develop the science, how to configure this radar network. These stakeholders included National Weather Service personnel, emergency management officials, mass media figures, and the public in general. The outcome that are operating right now are test beds in Oklahoma, Puerto Rico, and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in collaboration with industry and government partners and users of weather data. If you can go to the next slide. Once we get beyond that, we also have to deal with the question of how do we most effectively convey that information that the radars generate to the public so that the public and other decision makers can actually act upon it. So you have these little things like this interview with the emergency manager in Oklahoma saying, but a tornado warning, you probably get about 30% of individuals that if they see it coming their way, at their house, they may do something. The other 70% will probably go outside and look at it. This is Oklahoma, tornado capital of the world. Or this image from Puerto Rico about development in the 100-year flood zone. Turns out that not only is new development popping up all the time in the place where we know it's going to flood, and actually these 100-year floods that occur once every 100 years, or more like every 25 years nowadays, we have new development. Turns out that about 50% of the people aren't aware that they live in a place that's going to flood. So even if you tell them there's a potential for flood, they may not personalize that and act upon it. So that's other things that were considered as part of this project. Next slide, please. Another slightly different example of, so that previous one, it was the stakeholders more as research subjects or participants, but also with outreach and also in collaboration. This one is outreach to stakeholder groups, but more as partners in the enterprise, and less as research subjects or participants. So the National Tsunami Housing Mitigation Program in Puerto Rico is a good example of peer-to-peer relationships of a more collaborative nature. In this case, the University of Puerto Rico Seismic Network brought in state and local government agencies, the media, community organizations, and even the public, not as research subjects, but rather as partners. Ultimately, turned out to be a great example of how true interdisciplinary collaboration between seismologists, physical oceanographers, engineers, mass media, community, and social scientists working together can make a difference. Since 2006, Puerto Rico has been a full partner of the